Stewart is placed on you, and that are on your left side over your heart. We like to say that children come from the heart. All the other learners wear it on the other side, but not children, so it will be over your heart. At this time, I'm going to have you repeat after me in Hebrew and in English. I'm going to have you tear the ribbon indicating that you're forming
From the bottom.
Yeah, you grab it from the bottom to it. So please repeat after me. Baruch,
Baruch,
Atah,
Atah,
Adonai,
Adonai,
Dayan,
Dayan,
Ha'emet.
Ha'emet.
Praise to you,
He's on your back.
Adonai our God,
Adonai,
righteous judge.
righteous judge.
Take the ribbon from the bottom.
Where you leaving?
You don't have to, that's fine.
Okay, we're going to begin the service then, okay?
Okay.
Jay's driving a hearse. Oh, you're, okay, Jay.
Are we streaming? Jay, are we on?
We're good to go?
Yeah.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר. בינות אשר ירביצני על מי מנוחות ינחלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגצל מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי. דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדיפוני, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. In moments when we are in search of strength and comfort, when we need inspiration to move forward, we often turn to the psalmists. And so I invite you to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we remember Lillian Mulberg. To her children, to Ruth Ellen and Alan and Chaya, also to Jill and Ben, to her sister Joan, her granddaughter Jackie and grandson Elliot, and her great-granddaughter Virginia. And today we also remember her son-in-law, Andrew, of blessed memory. To all the members of the family and to all her cherished friends, whether you are here in person or, more likely, whether you're joining us through technology. Even though we're not all physically in the room together due to the circumstances of this period in time, our hearts are joined together today as we remember and also celebrate the life of your beloved Lily. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Lily's journey of 98 years began in Youngstown, Ohio. Lily and her twin sister Betty were born about 15 minutes apart on June 22nd, 1922, to Frida and Benjamin Plotkin. A few days ago, I had the privilege of speaking with Lily's youngest sibling, her sister Joan, who was nearly 12 years younger than her twin sisters. Joan recalled stories of moments in Lily's lifetime, occurrences that happened even before Joan herself was ever born. Joan explained that her parents, along with Betty and Lily, moved to Cleveland sometime around 1928 or 1929, a time that we all know could be described as one of the most challenging periods in our nation's history. And Joan also knew that her parents struggled to make ends meet. They struggled, and there were varieties of reasons. But the family found a way to make their home in Cleveland on Parkwood Drive in the Glenville neighborhood. And when Joan was born, she entered into a family where her 12-year-old twin sisters became like her second and third mom. Joan described both Lily and Betty as sisters who were, quote, I'm quoting her, exceedingly good to me. Those were her words. And she recalls that following their high school graduations from Glenville, Betty was the one who left home. She went off to study nursing, and Lily remained at home while attending classes at Cleveland College. And Joan recalled fondly those years when Lily would alternate attending classes for 6 months and then working for 6 months and then going back to classes for 6 months. She did this to help pay for her college education. She continued doing this until she obtained her degree. And the months when she was not in class, Joan recalled that her sister Lily worked in a lamp factory. And according to Joan, she learned how to work with her hands. She learned how to fix lamps, along with other things, a skill that stayed with her all of her life. Joan said that her sister was always good with her hands, and then with the invention of the Rubik's Cube, Lily mastered that as well. After Cleveland College, Joan remembers her big sister going to the library school at Western Reserve University, where she earned yet another degree. Whether it is her earliest memories of a big sis, French braiding Joan's long blonde hair, or Joan's memory from her teen years when Lily bought Joan a very fashionable but also very unaffordable cashmere sweater, or Lily who bought Joan her formal for her prom, or in their adult years as the sisters continued to grow even closer as they raised their children. Joan assured me that she is blessed with the sweetest memories of a wonderful sister. Now, when Lily was 31 years old, after her career as a librarian was well established, she was fixed up on a blind date. And this is how and when she met Jack Mulberg. That very first date, I'm told, was in October of 1952, and the two of them went bowling. Now, just 3 months later, on New Year's Eve, Jack proposed, and then the couple was married the following spring, in June of 1953. Jack and Lily made their home on Rosmer Road in Cleveland Heights, just around the corner from here. And they brought their 3 wonderful children into the world, and the Mulberg family portrait grew to be very beautiful and all the more complete. Jack and Lily enjoyed a variety of activities throughout the years. They played canasta with friends. They even took a square dancing class together. And to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary, I'm sure, with Lily's urging and pushing, Lily and Jack went on a cruise together. After 26 years of marriage, and when Jack was only 60 years old, he died suddenly, leaving Lily widowed and their now young adult children without their father. Lily, who I have learned was quite tenacious and always independent, Lily pulled together all of her strength and made the decision to move forward. Along with her career, she began to really spread her wings. She began to travel. Not only did Lily enjoy playing bridge with Aunt Betty, and with all their friends, but these were the gals or the pals that all went together on these various adventurous journeys. With them, Lily traveled to Italy. She loved Venice. They went to Israel on an Alaskan cruise and a Mediterranean cruise. She adored the Russian riverboat cruise. There were travels to Japan and also to Singapore to visit you, Alan, when you were working there, and travels to the Panama Canal and Australia, where Lily snorkeled the Great Barrier Reef. She was fearless. She went up in a hot air balloon with Jill and Alan. And with education always being of the utmost importance to her, Lily's travels also included trips to various elder hostels where continuing education was always the theme. In speaking with her children, words and phrases to describe their mother began to bubble up. They described her as educated, as a mom who wanted the best for her family, a woman who was well-traveled, tremendously independent, somebody who wanted to do things for herself. They said she had a dry sense of humor and could be at times a bit sarcastic. And above all, she loved being a grandmother. They remembered their mother, who did needlework and liked to sew and loved the arts and puzzles and games. She also liked to create poetry. You know when you go to bar and bat mitzvah receptions and there's the candle lighting ceremony with those corny little poems? That was Lily. She did that. They described her as tolerant and accepting. And Jill, I know that you were very close with your mother-in-law, and this was a relationship she treasured. And her son-in-law, Ben, it was at Ben's continuous urging for years that eased the way for Lily to make the move to Connecticut in January of 2010. And she did this in order to be closer to Ben and Chaya. And Lily was blessed with so many dear friends. She had her groups, her different special groups of friends. There were her work friends. There were her special and beloved Glenville girls. The librarians group, which met quarterly, a group of women who had a shared interest but also supported each other through their ups and downs, and even through the most difficult times, including the deaths of their husbands. These women were very special to Lily. And if one person rose above all the rest, it would have to be her absolute best friend, Elaine Rowe of blessed memory, someone who was not just a good friend, a best friend, but who was like another sister. And Elaine also lived into her 90s, so this was a lifelong friendship. Alan, you have special memories of being with your mom watching Jeopardy. I'm not sure who did better, you or your mom. Was it you, Alan? All right, because I know your mom was very educated, but you beat her. Okay, but you loved watching Jeopardy with her, and you think that this is what helped you develop this love for trivia and got you involved in trivia competitions. And when you would see her in these last years, this was a really special moment that the two of you looked forward to be able to watch Jeopardy and test your wits with each other. You brought up sports, and you said that your mom didn't really get the whole sports thing. She did not really understand it, but yet, because you were into it, she supported it. She drove you to all your Little League games and was your cheerleader. Your sister had a memory about you, Alan. Hers seems a little more clearer than yours, but there was that paper route. Now, while your sister, Ruth Ellen, seems to think that your mom was there every time at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, waking up. You said she did that a few times, but still, the fact that she would get up on a snowy day at 5 a.m. on occasion to help you with your paper route. You recall in your teen years, she was the one who picked you up late at night from your very first rock concert at John Carroll University. You described her as somebody who could be tough and feisty, but also wise and caring and thoughtful and generous. You also shared that she had a vice. You said your mom was a chocoholic. She'd buy M&Ms for herself. She'd hide the bags. You and your sisters would sometimes find them. You proudly described her as a progressive liberal. And you said she never really told a joke, but she would laugh at all of yours. She was easy to tease. Uncle Dan, Aunt Joan's husband, would just point her finger at her, and she'd just begin to giggle uncontrollably, with her begging him to stop. Chaya is not able to join us in person today, but I know Chaya is with us. And this morning, Chaya, I received your letter, and I'd like to share that with everyone. So friends, these are the words of her daughter, her youngest child, Chaya. Chaya writes the following. When my mom was 88, my sibling and I moved her from Cleveland to Connecticut. I know you'll hear from Ruth Ellen, and you'll know my mom better and the love she felt for the three of us, and Jill, Benj, Jackie, Elliot, and Ginny. All my cousins have always been there for my mom, but a special thank you to those who were local during her last years in Cleveland for watching over her and taking care of her and keeping us posted. Sherry Rosenfeld always had a place for Mom at her table and a joke in her heart. No one could get a depressed Lily out of it or laughing faster better than Cher Bear. And Diane and Sherry, I have no words, and there is no bottom to the depth of my gratitude for your love and concern for me and my mom every day all these years. Marianne and Michael and Paul and Nancy, they all had a special place in my mom's heart. And my mother's nieces by marriage and choice were as close to her as blood. I'm honored to call Candy my cousin to this day, a tribute to Lily and Elaine's lifelong friendship. Is it Mickey or Mikey? Mickey. Mickey never forgot to send my mom a birthday, Passover, or Hanukkah greeting, always writing the card in huge letters so Mom could see them before she totally lost her sight. Mickey's frequent calls and notes with large font were always a great source of comfort to my mom. And cousin Carol Zeiger Green's, Long Jack's favorite. Mom enjoyed every annual letter you sent, allowing her to keep up with you and Bob and David and Jackie and their brood, and the happenings of Richard and Larry. I'm sure my siblings join me in acknowledging the hard work and dedication of all caregivers. We were lucky that at both Wiggins in Cleveland and Fairfield's Jewish Home for the Elderly, we were surrounded by people who dedicated their lives to taking care of cranky, deaf, blind, geriatric patients who can be extremely stubborn people. Yes, Virginia, there are angels on earth. I have seen dining staff, custodial, security, nurses, doctors, clergy, and all manner of people truly give care. Anthony, your visits were a source of joy to my mom, and never a chore for you. Another testament to that big heart of yours. Jill, I think my mom removed the word in-law when speaking about you, but maybe that was just in my head. Thank you, Jill, for the love and devotion you always showed my mom. Al, Ruth Ellen, and I never doubted for a moment that you'd be there for her and us. She always said Singapore was her favorite country, and I know she loved their visa regulations. Benjamin Mark Schultz, what can I say? Your political discussions with my mom always entertained the nurses and aides. You were so good to her and to me throughout the roller coaster ride of the past 14 years. I could not have done it without you, just as I say about everything in my life. Jackie, 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 Jackie. I truly believe you taught my mom what life and joy and pride felt like, and she felt those for you every single day. Have no doubt. And she signs it, thank you all, Chaya. Now, if Lily wore a crown, and there were jewels in that crown, I think we can agree that the most precious gem in the crown would be that of her granddaughter, Jackie. Jackie, when we spoke, the very first memory that Jackie brought up was her grandmother's French toast on the griddle. She said it was awesome. She also said maybe that was the one thing she could really make, but that was her favorite thing. Jackie recalled that whenever she visited her, there was the French toast, there were the special lollipops right under the TV for Jackie. And Jackie, you remember if you would visit, maybe there was a time or two when you would be sick, that she would put you in her bed and she would give you a bell to ring in case you needed her. And you remember your grandmother always singing to you, I love you, a bushel and a peck. That was your song. Jackie also recalled the love of books that her grandmother instilled in her. Jackie has an intense love for literature and also a great respect for it. Jackie, I believe you're watching right now, so I'll just talk right to you. You said it's because of your grandmother you just cannot bring yourself to dog-ear a book. You're not able to do it. And you always felt her love. You always felt her love. These last few years, especially these last few months, were difficult, especially with none of us being able to see each other. But the last FaceTime call you had with your grandmother, when it was hard for her to say anything, she mustered up the strength and the ability to say to you, I love you. Not only did she love you, Jackie, she felt a love towards Anthony. She cared deeply for him and felt the love and respect that he had for her. She felt it. While it's important to talk about what people did to earn a living, I feel it's always more important to discuss what they did to earn a life. And so far we've heard a little bit about what she did to make a beautiful life. But in speaking about her career, she was quite accomplished. Lily worked for the Cleveland Public Libraries, for the public school libraries. She was there at the University Heights Public Library, and she helped to found the library at the Hebrew Academy. Her favorite thing when it came to her work was being able to read to the children. She loved books. She loved the authors. And this career was just perfect for her. It fulfilled her, and it gave her the flexibility that she needed to raise her 3 children. Lily retired in 1987, but it's no surprise that in her volunteer work, one of the things that gave her the most joy was when she worked with adults and the literacy program. She also volunteered for Meals on Wheels and was very involved with Jewish war veterans. She was the president of the Jewish War Veterans Auxiliary, and her children remember fondly that during this time there was a convention in California, and so Lily made sure to take the whole family with her to this conference so everyone could visit Disneyland. Our sages have told us that words which come from the heart enter to the heart. I've had the privilege, albeit a sad privilege, to deliver words from Alan's heart and from Chaya's heart. But now I want to call on her daughter, Ruth Ellen, who has words in her heart that she wishes to share with us today.
Technology here, bear with me a second.
1 second.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming with everything that's going on. It's just a lot of time. In a way, it's a relief. It's not sad that Mom has finally gone and is at peace and back with Rebecca, after a long life. But it brings back all the memories. Thank you for your lovely words. And Chaya, what you said was beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to take a little bit of a different track, but please bear with me. What can I say to best honor my mother and express what she meant to me? As my family and confidants know, I am not exactly known for my pithiness, but I will try to be succinct and get to her essence. However, given she lived 98 years, you may have to indulge me with a little more time to do my mother's memory justice. After interviewing all of us, Cancer Kathy worked her magic to speak primarily about the who, what, and where of her life. I am going to focus more on the how and why, with a little bit of overlap. It is no secret that my mother did not have the easiest of childhoods. Times were generally tough economically, especially during the Depression. There was also some chronic illness in the family that impinged on her home life. In my introductory psychology class, I remember learning that Freud posited our basic personality was already formed by age 4. Well, let me ask my psychiatrist cousin if that's true. But I think many of the personality traits, outlook on life, and fears that my mom held way into adulthood were shaped by her earliest experiences. She tended to be frugal and risk-averse in her advancement choices, due in no small part to the deprivation she faced in her youth. She never was one for the sports or outdoors. She regretted that she never learned to ride a bicycle or swim. This isn't that surprising, given that the resources to have a bike or take swimming lessons were probably not there for her. Despite such difficulties, I have no doubt that she was in a loving home where she also witnessed the strength and resilience, particularly of her own mother, my grandma Frida, as a guide. More recent conventional wisdom in child psychology has focused on the need for children to foster a strong sense of self-esteem in order to develop into fulfilled and productive adults. Whether by nature or nurture, along with some unfortunate traumas in her early youth, I don't believe that my mother ever did come to value herself to the degree to which she was entitled. Also, being petite, as my grandmother would say, added to her being rather shy and retiring. Perhaps that is why she gravitated to more solitary activities like reading and handiwork. I have often found myself saddened by thoughts of the difficulties my mom has confronted in her youth, but only out of a daughter's nonsensical wish that she could have been spared any pain or great hardship. My intention on this occasion is not to elicit more sadness, rather it is to recognize, when all is said and done, how aptly she overcame them to live a long and productive life. What she lacked in physical stature, she made up for with inner fortitude and hard work, just like her mother. She was tough and indefatigable when she had to be. How could I describe my mom in bullet points? Some of which Kathy mentioned. She was intelligent, educated, accomplished, cultured, civic-minded, worldly. Having worked her way through college at that lamp factory, she often spoke proudly of when she participated in a workers' strike. She was also a proud union supporter and member of the Cleveland Teachers Union. I remember distinctly when she refused to buy grapes to support the Cesar Chavez United Farm Workers boycott. Excuse me. She was curious and a lifelong learner. In her retirement years, as was mentioned, she traveled the world with her twin and best friend, Betty. She used to apologize to me, maybe to my siblings too, for spending our Yerusha, I should say. But I could not be happier that she finally had the chance to enjoy the rewards of her labor. Though sometimes with trepidation, she overcame her fears and tried new things. On one of the adventures I am most proud of, as Kathy mentioned, on the cruise with Betty around Australia, despite having never learned to swim, she went snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef. And thank God I have the picture Aunt Betty took from the deck to prove it. She was certainly one of the most organized people I ever knew. Unfortunately, unlike my dear sister Chaya, I did not inherit that attribute from her. This is also, no doubt, was a very desirable skill to have as a librarian and a mother and a wife and a daughter and a sister. She, not surprisingly, loved words and books. As was mentioned, she could be quite the wordsmith and relished her role as a self-proclaimed poet of the family, especially at festivities and the bar and bar mitzvahs. She was resilient and adaptive. Though she was somewhat bound by tradition and the conventions of her time and community, she was ultimately accepting of changing mores and tolerant of those with whom she might disagree. When her kids made choices that perturbed her, like living with a partner outside of marriage, she never made that cause to withhold her support or love. But most importantly, she was kind, generous, and loving. My husband often recited a favorite acclamation from the Hindu tradition that he learned, which says, "He who treads the path of duty and responsibility surely treads the path of enlightenment." If that is so, then my mom has undoubtedly achieved that enlightenment. She was kind to all and a good neighbor, but ultimately her family was her world and she prioritized its well-being and happiness above all else. If I had to say she had any major fault, it would be her tendency to feel hurt and sometimes even depressed when she felt slighted or unappreciated. My biggest regret about Mom is that she didn't possess the self-esteem commensurate with her abilities and accomplishments. So, back then now, full circle to the consequences of that early imprint of unworthiness, even though unwarranted by the record of her life. In the end, all she truly sought was to be recognized, accepted, and loved. I mean, it's even her Jewish name, Libe, Ahava, love. So now, I declare for the final testament, Lillian Mulberg, you were not only deserving of love, but you were deeply loved. Well, Mom, I hope that somewhere on some extraterrestrial plane, you can finally recognize that fact for yourself. No longer unsung, of thee I sing, dear mother mine. It's very clear, our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. But, oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. Shalom to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth Ellen. Thank you. Friends, those of you who are able at this time, I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsim Nuchanechona Tachat Kanfech Ashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Arakia Masirim, Et Nihishmat Ahava Bat Ben Sion Vefreda, Shehalakha Leolama Began Eden Teche Menuchata, Anaba Harachamim Astirecha Beseter Knafecha Leolamim, B'titzror B'titzrorecha Yemet Nishmata, Adonai hu nechalata v'tanuach b'shalom, al mishkava v'nomar, Amen. O merciful God who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, whose shine is the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Lily, who has gone now to her eternal home, may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Grant that her memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. Friends, our service will now continue at Zion Memorial Cemetery. To all of you who are here in person with us and to all who have joined us via technology, we thank you for your love and support on this sad but most important day.